sent a gift to a friend using her former title, Her Royal Highness, despite the fact that she and Harry stepped away from their royal roles in 2020. Damn them!
Make some fast money from the brand. Well, today the Queen...
It was supposed to be the night. A night dripping in grace, glamour, and that sweet, redemptive glow of victory. For Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, this wasn't just another event. Oh no, this was their grand return to the spotlight. A reminder to the world that they were still the golden couple with purpose, elegance, and respect written all over their names. They had come to New York City, the glittering capital of fame and fortune, for the grand humanitarian awards. The cameras were waiting, the lights were perfectly set, and Meghan, ever the perfectionist, had everything under control.
In the past that Harry and I had to grow up in, and I'll do everything I can to make sure we don't regress in that situation.
Inside their luxury Manhattan suite, it was organized chaos. Stylists darting between racks of designer gowns, publicists whispering about camera angles, assistants double-checking every second of the itinerary. Everything had been choreographed to the last detail. And there stood Harry, near the window, phone in hand, gazing at the skyline. The city sparkled below. Everything was perfect until that one phone call came through. The voice on the other end was calm, almost too calm. It was a representative from the awards committee. They had reviewed Meghan and Harry's special request, a private jet funded entirely by the event sponsors. And the answer? A polite but firm no. No drama, no drawn-out explanation. Just a cool, "We're sorry, but we can't accommodate that." For anyone else, it would have been a minor inconvenience. But for them, for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, it felt like something far bigger. A quiet slap that whispered, "The world's changing and not in your favor." It wasn't just rejection, it was a shift, a reminder that even royalty can get told no.
William, who wants to officially strip their behinds of the title once and for all.
The humanitarian awards were built on selflessness, on stories of people giving, helping, serving. So when a request for a sponsor-funded jet came in, it just didn't fit the tone. It wasn't personal, it was about principle. But for Harry and Meghan, a couple used to velvet ropes parting and red carpets unfurling at their feet, that no echoed deeper than anyone realized. No shouting followed, no angry phone slamming, just silence. That heavy, suffocating silence that fills a room when a door that was always open suddenly shuts. And the timing couldn't have been worse. See, Meghan's recent Paris Fashion Week appearance had already stirred up whispers. Sure, she'd been seen in the front row at Balenciaga, glamorous as ever, but insiders murmured that she wasn't actually on the official guest list. Her outfit? Gorgeous, yes. But it wasn't a custom designer piece, it was borrowed. And in the ruthless world of high fashion, borrowed means something. You're invited, but not embraced. You're visible, but not included. Then came the rumors, a drive through the same Paris tunnel where Princess Diana lost her life. When Meghan later brushed it off, saying she didn't realize the history, people didn't buy it. The internet turned savage. Accusations flew that she wasn't just inspired by Diana, she was copying her. By the time she left Paris, the flashbulbs still popped, but the warmth had cooled. The smiles were more polite, the energy less electric. So when the New York Humanitarian Awards came up, it felt like their comeback, their moment to rewrite the story. But that one phone call flipped the script entirely. It wasn't just about a plane. It was about power, about perception, about realizing the world doesn't revolve around your image anymore. Inside their team, the mood turned introspective. There weren't outbursts, just long looks and quiet questions. When did the automatic yes turn into a no? The team tried to pivot, citing safety concerns, privacy, the usual talking points, but the awards committee wasn't buying it. To them, paying for luxury travel while celebrating humility would have sent the wrong message. And honestly, they weren't wrong, because the humanitarian awards weren't built to flatter fame. They existed to honor those who give without expecting anything in return. Doctors, activists, community heroes, people whose impact comes from action, not optics. To cover a private jet for any celebrity, even royal ones, would have diluted that message. It would have changed the story from generosity to indulgence. So the committee held firm, quietly, respectfully, but firmly. And in that stillness, a subtle truth unfolded: integrity always outweighs image. Days passed. The show had to go on. The Sussex team reworked the plan. New travel arrangements, new PR angles, new talking points, everything polished to perfection, as always. Outwardly, nothing seemed amiss. But behind closed doors, things were shifting. The air was heavy with realization. The balance between fame and philanthropy was slipping. For years, Meghan and Harry had mastered image control. Perfect lighting, perfect words, perfect poses. Every move was deliberate, every appearance choreographed to tell a story of grace and independence. But now, every small misstep magnified, every decision dissected. The Paris whispers still lingered, and now this jet refusal felt like another bruise on their brand. Meanwhile, in the background, Hollywood and the charity world were changing. People didn't worship fame the same way anymore. Audiences wanted authenticity, not polished performances. One industry insider summed it up: people trust real now, not rehearsed. That new reality hit hard, because for Meghan and Harry, whose names once commanded attention everywhere they went, it meant their royal glow wasn't enough anymore. Visibility no longer guaranteed admiration. Alignment did. Their causes could still shine, but only if their actions reflected their words. As the award night approached, the biggest question wasn't about their speech or outfits, it was about tone. How do you project humility when your entire career has been built on spectacle? That was the challenge. And though the world wouldn't see it, the real test began the moment they were told no. By the week of the event, both sides had moved on professionally. But privately, reflection had begun. For the event organizers, it was a matter of values, a statement that equality must always trump entitlement. For Meghan and Harry's camp, it was about perception. Would the media twist this into humiliation, or would it go unnoticed? The press was already changing its tune. The gossip wasn't about outfits or titles anymore. It was about consistency. Were the Sussexes living what they preached? That quiet no, unheard by the public, became a whispered example behind the scenes. Other charities took note. Even the most high-profile guests weren't immune to being reminded that reputation is earned, not inherited. It was subtle, but it was powerful. The world was watching and taking notes. Inside the Sussex household, the energy changed completely. Suddenly, it wasn't about grandeur, it was about gratitude. Memos went around their team. Softer language, gentler messaging, fewer slogans, no more reclaiming power. Now it was all about humility and authenticity. And honestly, it was the smartest move they could have made. Because fame can open doors, but credibility keeps them open. Observers said the shift was necessary. Meghan and Harry had stepped away from royal life to find freedom. But this moment reminded them that freedom doesn't mean immunity, it means accountability. They couldn't control every perception anymore, not every headline, not every whisper. And that, more than anything, humbled them. The awards committee's quiet refusal had done something remarkable. It had set a new precedent. Other charities quietly applauded it, calling it a model of integrity over indulgence. It wasn't about disrespect, it was about balance. In a world drowning in curated images and fake sincerity, this was a rare moment of clarity. For Meghan and Harry, it hit close to home. They had spent years building their brand, independence, influence, advocacy. But it had always been a delicate dance, freedom mixed with fame, sincerity tangled with strategy, and that single rejection made them face the truth. This wasn't humiliation, it was revelation. Because influence, true influence, doesn't come from luxury. It comes from authenticity. To be taken seriously in the world of global charity, they needed to prove consistency, not command admiration. The world wasn't shutting them out. It was simply saying, show us who you really are. And in that mirror, stripped of luxury and privilege, Meghan and Harry found something real. The humanitarian awards hadn't rejected them, they had reflected them. And that reflection, raw, honest, and unfiltered, showed what still mattered most: sincerity over spectacle. The night of the awards finally arrived, and this time, there were no flashing lights outside, no red carpet commotion, no sleek convoy of tinted luxury cars rolling up to the curb. No, this was something different, something quieter, something humbler. A single black SUV slipped through Manhattan traffic and pulled up to the venue. Unnoticed, almost anonymous. Inside, Meghan and Harry sat together side by side. No stylists fussing, no assistants adjusting their collars. Just two people, breathing deeply before stepping into a room that once would have revolved around them. It was the kind of entrance that used to be unthinkable for them. No fanfare, no spotlight, just quiet. And maybe, just maybe, that was the point. The event hall glowed softly under chandelier light. The air hummed with calm energy. Guests mingled politely. No screaming fans, no camera flashes, just an atmosphere of focus, of purpose. When Meghan and Harry entered, heads did turn, but gently. Not with gasps or awe, just acknowledgement. the kind that says, "Ah, they're here," rather than, "Oh my God, it's them." They took their seats without ceremony, blending into the crowd. The focus for once wasn't on them. It was on the cause, the awards, the people being honored for their work, not their image. And that in itself was revolutionary. As the ceremony began, honorees took the stage. Community leaders, volunteers, people who had dedicated their lives to serving others quietly, without cameras or applause. Then it was Meghan and Harry's turn. They rose gracefully. No showmanship, no practiced sparkle, just measured poise and calm energy. Their words that night weren't headline-grabbing or emotionally overworked. They were real. They spoke of compassion, resilience, and the importance of service without expectation. They didn't chase applause. And yet, the room listened like never before. When the applause finally came, it wasn't explosive or frenzied. It was warm, genuine, earned. And for the first time in a long while, it wasn't for the spectacle, it was for the sincerity. Gone were the days of being royal rebels or Hollywood icons. That night, they weren't commanding the room, they were sharing it. And that small but powerful difference changed everything. For the organizers, it was proof they'd made the right call. The focus stayed where it belonged, on the causes, not the celebrity presence. And for Meghan and Harry's team, it was a wake-up call. They realized that presence alone no longer shaped perception. What mattered now was alignment between what they said and what they did. The private jet that never took off became a symbol hovering quietly over the evening. It wasn't a scandal anymore. It was a metaphor, a reminder that influence doesn't equal immunity. The world would still listen to them, yes, but not blindly. Every word, every choice, every flight mattered now. It wasn't about being adored anymore. It was about being understood. When the ceremony ended, Meghan and Harry didn't linger for photo ops. There was no after-party frenzy, no show of grandeur. They slipped out through a side door, hand in hand. The night air was crisp, cool, honest. A few photographers lingered nearby, their cameras flashing softly. No shouting, no chaos, just the sound of footsteps and city wind. And in that quiet exit, something remarkable happened. It wasn't a fall from grace. It was a return to ground, a pause, a moment of humility that said more than any speech ever could. Because sometimes the most powerful moment isn't the one lit by spotlights. It's the one no one expected to see. The next morning, headlines rolled out. No scandal, no uproar, no clickbait chaos, just simple neutral coverage. Meghan and Harry attend humanitarian awards. That was it. No viral debates, no fashion dissection, just quiet professionalism. For a couple who'd lived through years of relentless noise, that silence was deafening and meaningful because it meant they had finally learned to let their actions speak louder than their PR. Behind the scenes, though, the philanthropic world noticed. Oh, they noticed. The committee's decision not to fund luxury travel for the Sussexes became a quiet conversation among other organizers. A new gold standard, even. It was proof that integrity and restraint could coexist. That generosity didn't need glamour to be genuine. And for Meghan and Harry, that message hit home harder than any tabloid jab ever could. They'd spent years walking a tightrope between royal tradition and modern independence, between advocacy and image, between sincerity and showmanship. Now, they'd finally seen what happens when you choose simplicity over spectacle. They hadn't been humiliated by the denial. They'd been humbled and grounded. And maybe, just maybe, that was exactly what they needed. Their team stayed quiet afterward. No spin, no statements, no sources close to the couple explaining what really happened. They did something incredibly rare. They said nothing. And that silence, it became their most strategic move in years, because sometimes silence isn't weakness, it's wisdom. And when paired with sincerity, it's the loudest thing in the room. Observers later called it a reset, a soft correction after seasons of spectacle and overexposure. It wasn't about losing power, it was about regaining perspective. The jet that never flew became symbolic of their new phase, not soaring above everyone, but walking beside them, not preaching, but participating. And in that grounded stillness, something beautiful happened. A truth emerged, the kind that can't be scripted, only lived. Influence isn't about control, it's about consistency. Audiences don't crave perfection anymore, they crave authenticity. And that's exactly what this night gave them. The humanitarian awards didn't strip Meghan and Harry of relevance. They redefined it. It wasn't humiliation, it was evolution. A reminder that credibility doesn't come from crowns, cameras, or private jets. It comes from showing up, quietly, honestly, and with purpose. That night, as they looked out at the New York skyline from their hotel window, the Hudson lights glittering in silence, maybe, just maybe, they understood it too. The jet stayed grounded, but their message, it finally took flight, because true meaning doesn't live in altitude. It lives in alignment. And in that moment, Meghan and Harry stopped chasing approval and started earning respect. The noise faded, the spectacle dimmed, and for the first time in years, they weren't trying to prove anything. They were simply being being. If stories like this teach us anything, it's that fame, power, and purpose will always collide. But how you rise from that collision defines who you truly are. The Sussexes learned that lesson the hard way, and somehow, the silence that followed said it all. Because sometimes the quietest turns tell the biggest stories. Tell the biggest stories. Tell the big...